People of Reddit who survive on less than 8 hours of sleep. How? Friendly neighborhood sleep scientist stopping in. Most adults need 8 to 9 hours to function optimally. This is supported by a pretty robust body of research. Shorter sleep duration than this is associated with performance decrements across a variety of domains, and there is evidence for negative impacts on physiological health in the short and long term as well. Sleep is key to processes like restoration in various physical systems. There is also growing evidence that short sleep interferes with consolidation of memory from short to long-term storage. Sleep and relationships also appear to affect each other reciprocally. Good relationships promote good sleep, and bad sleep can hurt relationship functioning. TL, doctor, it's bad for you bro, for the vast majority of people, anyway, even if it feels like it isn't. There is limited but growing evidence that some people are true short sleepers who may experience fewer or no apparent negative cognitive effects of short sleep. This phenomenon is poorly understood, but is being investigated increasingly. Research is slowed in part by the difficulty of finding participants who are true short sleepers, but it is clear that most of us are not in this category, even if we think we are. The truth, according to the best available evidence, is that the vast majority of adults need 8 hours for best results. It is also critical to note that it is not clear whether people who feel like they experience no negative effects from short sleep are at lower risk for well-established physiological costs of short sleep, such as elevated cardiovascular risk. Emerging evidence is beginning to suggest that even if you feel you are not experiencing psychological or physical costs of short sleep, your actual physical health costs may be the same as for people who do feel the cognitive effects of short sleep. See for example, Williams et al., 2021. You can improve the quality of your sleep by prioritizing sleep hygiene. This includes having a regular bed/wake time each day, even on the weekends. There's no such thing as catching up on lost sleep, not in a true sense. You can't undo the damage completely. Further, some evidence is beginning to indicate that the tempting practice of sleeping in on weekends to try to repay sleep debt has negative effects beyond the sleep that has already been lost. A consistent bed/wake schedule is one of the best gifts you can give yourself. Other tips you may have heard include minimizing light exposure, especially to blue light, for a few hours before bed. There is limited evidence about the effectiveness of things like phones' native settings for blue light reduction, so consider getting some filter glasses to put on when you are approaching bedtime, and avoid screens. Other good resources are available via you Googling it. Smile. You may think you are getting more sleep than you are. Smartphones and wearables can help track your sleep to try to assess how much you're getting. Alexa can alert you if you snore at night, which can indicate sleep problems. This tech isn't as good as research-grade sleep actigraphy or polysomnography, but it's getting better. If you go this route, be sure you don't get obsessive about the data and quantifying or gamifying it. Good sleep is the goal, not making your phone happy at all costs. If you struggle with falling or staying asleep, the Veterans Administration has good, evidence-based smartphone apps you can download to help coach you and build good habits. Sweet dreams. Follow-up edits below here. Caffeine is definitely worth thinking about when thinking about your sleep hygiene as well. For example, my sleep is fairly delicate, but getting better, thanks to science, so I won't start a new serving of coffee after noon or finish one after 2 p.m. Caffeine can compound sleep problems because although it can help you get through the day, it is very easy to then have it interfere with nighttime sleep latency, how long it takes you to fall asleep, quality, or quantity. If you are using caffeine to get through the day because you're tired and dragging, it may well feel useful within days, but be detrimental to your sleep and performance across days. It's like putting a band-aid over a fresh wound to cover it immediately, but then ripping it off that night before the underlying problem has healed. If caffeine is interfering with your sleep quality, consider switching to something caffeine-free to fill that space as an afternoon ritual. You may find that the break in your routine still helps refresh you without interfering with a good night's rest. You can use your phone or other smart devices to remind you to start winding down and getting ready for bed in advance of your bedtime. I have my spare speakers remind me with phrases like "you're a sleep scientist," "go to bed, it's important," and "go to bed now." It promotes a healthy immune system. Additionally, pretty much any flat-screen TV has, buried in its annoying, hard-to-navigate settings menu, an auto-off timer feature. Do some quick Googling to figure out where this setting is on your TV and set it to turn off at a certain time each day. Similarly, if you have smart plugs or switches in your home, you can set them to turn lights off at a given time. Mine are set to go off in advance of my mandatory bedtime. You only have to set this up once, and then every night, your smart home will help nudge you toward bed. Sure, you might be tempted to turn the TV on to finish an episode or to turn the lights back on and finish the chapter you're reading, but anything you can do to decrease friction in the direction of your target bedtime and good sleep hygiene will help. A parting thought: I once heard a very eminent colleague speak on this subject, and he said, if you were a sleep scientist, if you understood sleep and its importance the way I do, you would never shortchange yourself on another night of it. I found that quite sobering because I am a sleep scientist, I do understand the importance, and I was still shortchanging myself. Many cultures today have succumbed to the glorification of business, in which it is seen as some kind of badge of honor to not need much sleep. For almost all of us, however, 8 to 9 is the magic number, and we can't shortchange that fact, just ourselves. See some great free resources from the VA here on sleep basics, improving your sleep, and evidence-based tools for serious sleep intervention if you need to up your Z game. Financial disclosures: my sleep research has been funded by various institutes at the National Institutes of Health and not by commercial interests, and I do not have any financial interest in any sleep services or products, so I have no competing interests to disclose. Thank you so much for this response. I'm one of those people that functions fine on June 7th hours of sleep, but I wonder if I'm missing out on something and if I'm winning some long-term damage. A question: do naps help? I like to take naps in the afternoon when I'm alone, and prefer going to bed a little later to spend time with my husband. Great question. With all standard disclaimers out of the way, for example, I am not your doctor, see a qualified and licensed sleep specialist in your area, beware the Ides of March, etc., happy to offer some thoughts. First, without being a doomer, the evidence suggests that, statistically, you are most likely to be in the category along with the rest of us mere mortals who need 8 to 9 hours. It can certainly be the case that you are experiencing negative effects without noticing them, either because you have become accustomed to them or because they are in domains outside your awareness. Some of the processes with which sleep interacts show effects almost immediately. For example, metabolism can be markedly different the day after poor sleep. Other processes are cumulative, meaning losses compound over time and may not be noticeable at first. The good news includes that other processes are more temporally limited, exhibiting less autocorrelation. That is, getting better sleep next month might make you look like someone who has been getting good sleep for years, at least in those domains. It is never too late to start reaping the benefits of better sleep. Unless you're dead, I guess, so start tonight. It's also important to consider that although sleep difficulties tend to increase with age, resulting in lower quality sleep, our need for good sleep remains about the same as it does in young adulthood, so developing good sleep hygiene now is a great investment in the present and future you. Regarding naps, there are positives and negatives. A lot of the positives have to do with shorter-term cognitive processes, i.e., you might have a more productive afternoon at work if you catch a quick snooze. This summary covers some of those potential benefits. Unsurprisingly, there is less evidence to conclusively state what the implications might be for longer-term processes like memory consolidation and other physiological considerations. When weighing whether naps are a net positive for you, perhaps the biggest thing to consider is whether they decrease nighttime sleep pressure/drive. Loosely, this is your sleepiness, or overall nighttime sleep quality. The priority should be making sure that your primary chunk of sleep, nighttime for most people, is protected, so if you have long sleep latency, it takes a long time for you to fall asleep, a lot of sleep disruptions, inadequate sleep duration, or other sleep problems, the first advice most sleep experts will give you is to nix the naps and see how that works out for you. We do need protracted periods of sleep in order to allow maximum benefits, because we go through sleep stages about 5 cycles per night, and there may be costs to fewer cycles, and there are certainly costs to not reaching the deep, REM, sleep stages. Further reading on sleep stages for nerds. More recent evidence indicates sleep architecture isn't as fragile as once thought. That is, if sleep cycles are disrupted on a given evening, don't despair. Your whole night isn't ruined if something wakes you up in the night. Sure, it is better to sleep straight through if possible, but you aren't starting over from zero when you go back to sleep. There is some interruption to the overall sleep pattern, but it isn't as though it is restarting completely. To wander back in the general direction of your question, if your afternoon nap is short, say, less than 40 minutes, and doesn't interfere with your nighttime sleep, a very hazy guess is that tentatively, maybe it is fine, but shouldn't be counted when you're thinking about how much sleep you're getting overall. If it is longer, a couple hours, bringing your 24-hour total to 8 to 9 hours, then getting that nap in might be better for you than skipping it and only sleeping 6 hours at night. Getting good quality sleep that is split across a couple periods is probably better than only having one of those periods, but of course, that assumes the nap isn't interfering with your nighttime sleep quality or duration. Sleep is important, it's one of the most overlooked factors in our health, many experts agree. However, Some of the other big factors that often make that list are healthy social relationships, along with nutrition and exercise, but I'm not that kind of doctor. So although this conversation is focused on sleep, it's also smart of you to factor in relationship health like you're doing. As I mentioned above, sleep and relationships are increasingly found to affect each other in reciprocal ways, so investing in good relationships may turn out to be an investment in your sleep. Positive relationships also have substantial, measurable effects on psychological and physical well-being, including many long-term processes like cellular aging, systemic inflammation, and cardiovascular health. So it would be silly to recommend you neglect your partner to prioritize sleep. That is the kind of decision and balancing that sleep science isn't currently equipped to make for you, but you can use the science to inform your decisions and sleep experiments. Estimates on the ideal nap time vary across sources. Some say as little as 10 minutes, which would not do me any noticeable good. I feel 40 minutes is my perfect nap target. Some people, including other sleep experts I know, swear by downing a quick cup of coffee and setting an alarm for 30 to 40 minutes later so that you feel the caffeine when you're waking up. Caffeine is another entire treatise on sleep, so maybe I'll add that to my original comment instead of rambling here. Good luck. Further reading, another good basic summary on napping recommendations. Edit, fixed paragraph breaks. Hatred and the need to pay bills. Step 1. Ignore all the cries for help your body releases. Step 2. There is no step 2. Did you forget the crippling caffeine addiction that just makes you tired but faster? Yep, coffee on a constant drip. A coworker told me he doesn't drink coffee on the weekends. I responded that I have a latte machine that only gets used on the weekends. I drink black coffee during the week. Since I actually have time to put into prepping, I make fancy, tasty coffee on the weekends. The wonderful thing about caffeine addiction that I learned when I kicked the habit. I can actually survive on less sleep now because I am not addicted. Fucking caffeine makes you tired, man, it ain't worth it. Hate myself, decide I'm going to bed earlier tonight, fail, repeat. It's cute when we think we're going to go to bed earlier, right? I'm constantly in a state of delusion. Well, sometimes I go to bed earlier to be good. Those are the nights where I toss and turn for 2 hours, get bored and start browsing Reddit on my phone, and sleep even later than I would have. Gotta love getting even less sleep but without even the slight solace of having made progress through a show or game. Hello. I just wanted to offer a small possible help as a long-lived bed tosser lol. If you don't start to doze after 20 to 30 minutes, just get up and do something. Not like watch a thing/play a game etc. like actually do something. Scrub the bath, load the dishwasher, sweep the floor. I found that doing this kind of stuff takes the same time I'd just lay there, stressing about not sleeping, but after a few weeks of doing stuff like that, when in bed you're all oh fuck. Stuff is done. I'm a real person RN. That's a nice feeling. About 50% of the time it leads to me sleeping, but 100% of the time it leads to me feeling more kind of put together? And functional? I'm on a journey with it, but this feels like a hack tbh. I started expanding it into making my lunch for the next day to save time in the morning. Now I get an extra 15 minutes in the morning whenever I can't sleep. It just helps. Not much, but it helps a bit after years of nothing at all helping. Maybe you're similar and it helps you too. Maybe. GL. Life is weird. That's solid advice, though only if you don't live with anyone else or in a cheap apartment building, of course. Otherwise that becomes impossible unless you want to become the annoying person who constantly wakes up everyone else in the house/building in the middle of the night. Something a bit more quiet that can also help out both mentally and physically is simple exercise. Push-ups, sit-ups, squats, stuff that makes you move slowly and in place and doesn't have you jump or move quickly. Don't have to do it for like an hour and get all sweaty and such either. Just 10 to 20 minutes of low-paced exercise is usually enough to help. Welp, I can't sleep. Time to mow the lawn. Picturing someone setting up construction lights to mow the lawn in the middle of the night is hilarious. When the cops roll up he'd just say sorry boys, just couldn't sleep, you know how it is lol. I'm done anyway. Just gotta get the leaf blower out. My town has literally tried to prevent mowing lawns on Saturdays because of other people's religion. I haven't been able to fall asleep before midnight since I was a child. Doesn't matter how early I get up. I have a coworker who is a cleaner in a psych hospital who is 50, only works nights and says she only sleeps 3 or 4 hours a day. Don't know how she does it. My boss is like this. He's around 50, goes to bed at 10 to 11 p.m., wakes up at 2 to 3 a.m., starts working. Everyone in the company knows that it is mandatory to check your email right at the start of the day because the boss sends stuff during the night. Somehow he's the most energetic guy I've ever met. I boomerang all my late night emails as to not come off as deranged. They will just be like, wow, he sends emails exactly at 7 a.m. every time. So consistent. Just reading these comments makes me feel tired. Always set mine to anything but exact 0 times. 6:47 a.m. Hard worker. 7 a.m. Scheduled sender. I do the same thing, but set to 8:17. My students don't need to know I have no life and answer their questions after midnight. I had a weird morning once. I went to bed at 10 p.m. and woke up at 1 a.m. I stayed up and did homework since I felt strangely awake for once. I sent an email to my professor at 4:37 in the morning, and he sent a reply 2 minutes later. I was spooked. Love that feeling. You know you're one of the only people awake and active. Then you run into someone else who's vibing the same level at 3 a.m. Connected. That is a good feeling. I always feel bad if a teacher replies during out-of-office times. I once sent an email on a Saturday, expecting an answer around Tuesday maybe, but the reply came in an hour later. I apologized for bothering him lol. I'm in consulting and unless it's actually urgent I will periodically sit on emails because I'm not willing to set an expectation that I'm not willing to maintain. After a while you get used to feeling like a zombie and get more energetic because being chronically sleep deprived feels like you had a couple of drinks. I've gone through phases like this, but once I start back on a normal sleep schedule everything starts to feel more real again. At first you hate it. Then after a while, you accept it. As time continues to pass and it begins to feel normal, you wonder if things weren't always this way. The window fogs up and you wipe it with your sweater, but the fog seems to come back quicker every time. Coke. I used to work with a guy who had 3 jobs. Worked all of them 5 days a week. He wasn't a very energetic guy. Always looked tired. Nice guy though. No idea how he did it. Like 10 years ago there was a span of like 6 months where I had 2 jobs. 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. 5 a.m. I basically just ran on naps. There were some days where I felt really fucked just driving to work. Nodding off. Was dumb as hell. That guy working 3 is probably dead by now. I do this neat little trick where I borrow a few hours from the end of my life every time I don't get enough sleep. Been doing it for years and I don't see any potential problems or downsides. Can't die in your sleep if you don't sleep though. I remember one time in my life where I woke up feeling fully refreshed and I've never forgot that moment ever since. Interestingly enough, that happened to me once when I had surgery and got anesthetized. Turns out I have sleep apnea and the tube they put down my throat was holding my windpipe open, so I stopped having apnea temporarily, so me being asleep was actually useful. I started to wonder if I had sleep apnea. Did you have any symptoms before finding out? I have sleep apnea. My main symptoms were chronic fatigue and snoring. I went to an ENT doctor, who immediately pointed out the thing in the back of my throat was abnormally stretched, possible symptom of sleep apnea. This was frustrating to hear after 25 years of primary care physicians having me open my mouth and go ah and noticing nothing unusual about it. But I guess that's why they're specialists. I have also noticed that doctors in general seem to not really give a fuck about checking in on your sleep health, or monitor how tired you are in general. Fatigue is one of the most common symptoms across the board for all medical issues, but there's really no effort made to check if someone is experiencing it. Edit. Obstructive sleep apnea, OSA, affects approximately 20% of U.S. adults, of whom about 90% are undiagnosed. 2009. https://pubmed.ncb.nlm.nih.gov/191861002/. This study was done because surgeons wanted to know how many people have undiagnosed sleep apnea. Conclusion: undiagnosed OSA is prevalent in adult surgical patients. Implementing universal screening is feasible and can identify undiagnosed OSA in many surgical patients. Further investigation is needed into perioperative complications and their prevention for patients with undiagnosed OSA. Since it's a symptom of so many things, they probably feel it's useless information. It doesn't help narrow down the problem, I guess. That or people feeling exhausted and like shit all the time isn't something society considers a problem. All I know is I can't function because of it. Naps make me feel even more tired than I was before sleeping, but there was this one nap one time that I woke up feeling the most refreshed I've ever been after sleeping in my whole life. Never been able to replicate it. You probably woke up once at the end of a cycle. Try figuring out what's your ideal length for a nap, you will feel so much better. Power naps are awesome. Currently caught in a month-long sleep debt where I can't shift back to getting sufficient sleep, but this happened last Saturday and it was truly blissful. I laid down on my bed to rest a bit at around 3 p.m., not even wearing my earplugs, and woke up with no alarm about 1:30 later. At first I was so not sleepy I thought I closed my eyes 5 minutes. Then I felt the actual excitement of being rested. Man, I need more sleep. I heard on a podcast that sleep cycles start and complete in approximately 90 minutes. You nap the perfect amount of time. It's a great feeling once you wake up all refreshed. If you are doing a nap, I believe it was person dependent, but 15 to 30 minutes is your short nap, where you don't quite get to a deeper phase, but there is a significant benefit. Then it goes to the end of the next cycle. If you wake up in between, it's not nearly as beneficial. Circadian rhythm loves 30-minute intervals. 30 and then 90, blocks of 90 are ideal, avoids that groggy feeling. How do you nap for the correct length of time if you can't fall asleep on command? That was always my issue too. If I set an alarm for 90 minutes, then I'm stressed that I can't fall asleep. 20 minutes and I'm great. 30, kinda. Over 40 and I'm fucked. 20 minutes is the golden number for naps. The hard part is actually falling asleep at the right moment so that your alarm wakes you up when you hit 20 minutes. This is why my power nap alarm is 37 minutes long. It usually is pretty close, but not always, which can be frustrating. I've been using a meditation app as a way to calm down for 5 or 10 minutes before taking an afternoon nap, and I swear by this as it almost guarantees a better nap. I have a lot wrong with my body, mainly my back and leg constantly hurting. But one day I woke up and felt amazing. No pain whatsoever. I was actually worried lol. I'll never forget that day. A few years ago, it was midnight and my wife and I were randomly super hungry. We debated doing a 1 a.m. Denny's run like we did when we were teenagers. After a bit, we decided to cook up a full breakfast. While cooking, I nibbled on some baby carrots and had a small cup of coffee. It was a weird night. After eating, it was around 2 a.m. I had been planning to pull a near all-nighter to digest since we had no plans the next day and I could sleep in. But I was suddenly exhausted and went to sleep. I woke up 4 hours later, awake. Like, when I think of the definition of awake, I think of that morning. I could practically see time, I was using 100% of my brain, I was just fully, completely, pleasantly aware of all of my senses. I have never felt that good before or after that day. I did try to replicate it once. And just felt like crap instead. Maybe it was the coffee before you slept? I've heard that taking in caffeine before a nap can make you feel energized after that sleep, but maybe that's just for shorter time periods? Ike. Coffee naps are apparently a thing. My roommate called them nappuccinos and it's what we used to do before a night out. Like a disco nap but with uppers. It works really well. After reading the why I started trying it and oh my god it's amazing. The idea is, caffeine takes 15 to 25 minutes to start doing its thing. Caffeine does its thing by binding to the same receptors as the chemical that makes us sleepy. By taking a nap immediately after consuming, the idea is the nap flushes out the sleep chemicals, hormones. I have to look it up again, just as the caffeine arrives to plug up those receptors. Coffee naps are the shit. Back in college my whole house would get up in the morning on some weekends, start drinking, have coffee naps at like 3, then wake up and continue drinking all night fully rejuvenated. Felt borderline superhuman lol. June 17, 2007. Summer had just kicked off. I had just gotten my nasal packing out from a June 17, 2007. Summer had just kicked off. I had just gotten my nasal packing out from a nose surgery I got to fix my deviated septum. I didn't sleep for 2 weeks more than 30 minutes at a time and that day I slept 14 hours. I had a dream I was on a giant floating raft in the Bahamas, water was crystal clear and only 4 feet deep for miles. I could smell the salt water. Woke up and my family was gone for the day already and it was just quiet and bright. I thought to myself that I will probably never feel this rested again, and that was the peak of my life. Had this feeling a couple of months after I got my CPAP machine. Still very lousy sleep, random times to fell asleep, not always able to at all, but it was so much better than the previous state. 2 weeks into CPAP use and I'm every bit as exhausted and drained as before use. Scared that it'll stay this way. Happy to hear it's a couple months and you've gotten better. Check your eye on the machine, the pressure probably needs some adjustment to correctly work for you. I adjusted mine 2 or 3 times and now it's down below one eye. Edit, you should check your machine settings and your mask tightness. I'm a month in and there's still a massive difference for me. I'm definitely still waking up sometimes, but it's still a huge difference for me. Our power went out the other day and I went back to sleep without my machine and I woke up the next morning and felt like I had the worst hangover of my life. It was horrible. Ever since I had mono in college, I've basically never felt that again. It always takes me like an hour in the morning for the zombie brain feeling to lessen to the point of manageable. If you like the video, hit that subscribe button for more content. I post every day and I'll see you next time with more stories.